Hello and welcome to ECOTIMES.TV magazine podcast. Today we have a special guest, Mike Millikin. I'm your host, Alexander Strong. Today, Mike is going to be telling us all about kind of eco cars, what kind of technology is coming through, how kind of a future is going to be with, you know, kind of transport and kind of more eco kind of friendly cars. So, Mike, if you can kind of give us a kind of update on the current kind of eco car landscape. I know there's some great technology coming from BMW with their i3 and stuff. So, please take it away.
Okay, and thanks very much for having me on the show. Before I get into specific cars like that, though, I'd like to take a step back for a second and just say that this is an amazing time in terms of automotive engineering, because so many things are happening right now that are driving innovation. You've got the mandates to reduce fuel consumption and greenhouse gases. We've got this incredible surge of technology from other areas like materials technology and semiconductor technology, the whole IT internet thing, revolution. And all of that's being leveraged to create materials. All of that's being leveraged to create some fairly amazing cars in the short term, you know, that are being delivered right now that you can buy if you have sufficient money. The cost is still one of the big issues. And then further down the road, where the industry's taking multiple paths, because transportation is very complex and there's no single answer for everybody. So in order to survive as businesses in the future, the automotive companies and their suppliers are trying to cover a lot of bases right now, and it's not quite clear how things will specifically settle out, say, in 10 to 15 years. But so it makes it very interesting.
I just wanted to. We interviewed a renewable energy expert, and he was saying about flywheel technology, and he was saying how the Formula E, you know, kind of, it's like Formula One, but like, you know, with the all kind of battery power cars,
right?
And how the technology coming through, kind of research for that is becoming really substantial in terms of what they can use in everyday vehicles. So yeah, I just wanted to chuck that in, and hopefully we can highlight that.
You're quite right, and actually a lot of that work's been done in the UK, which, you know, good for you.
Yeah.
But that type of system is being applied in buses, and they're looking at doing other heavy duty vehicles such as waste collection vehicles.
Yep.
You know, and it gets to my earlier comment about there's so many aspects to transportation, and what you use and how you use it has a big effect on the right type of technology. So for a very heavy vehicle that does a lot of stopping and starting, like a bus or a garbage truck or refuse truck, something like the flywheel technology makes a lot of sense, and it's going to be cheaper than going with a big lithium-ion battery or something like that. So there's all these little factors that go into it to make it, make it interesting academically. It also makes it very difficult from a business point of view, because realistically, you can't do everything. So different companies are making bets on how to proceed. And, you know, in terms of cars, we see Toyota's taking a very strong stance in terms of hybrids. So they're putting hybrids into everything, and the Prius is still the best-selling hybrid car on the planet. You know,
So the one technology that we did see, we were at Eco Show in France, and we saw hydrogen fuel cells, and they converted a Hyundai 4x4 with hydrogen fuel cells, and I think it gave it a range of I think it was about 500, 600 miles, which is obviously kind of double your average battery kind of car at the moment. So I'm just wondering what kind of hydrogen fuel cell kind of car technology you've seen on your radar.
Well, there's quite a bit going on, and it's being promoted heavily, of course, by Toyota and Hyundai, and other companies have backed off a little bit. They're pushing a little heavier on the battery technology. The thing to keep in mind when you look at all of this is that all the alternative technologies are going against a very strong and capable competitor, and that's gasoline and diesel. I mean, putting aside the health effects and putting aside the climate effects of using a fossil fuel like that, just as a fuel, both gasoline and diesel are extremely energy dense and they're very efficient. Now, the engines might not be as efficient, but as a fuel, those are pretty great things. So when you look at a battery, the battery has much less energy density than gasoline or diesel, and that's one of the problems that the electric cars have with range. Right? That electrochemists are trying to address with new types of batteries and so on and so on. Right. So where hydrogen comes in is that because of that longer range, it gives you a different option for a zero tailpipe emission car. You know, if all you're doing is driving around the city and you don't go very far, or you've got a way to really fast charge your vehicle and can hang around for 15 minutes or so, assuming you can do that, then a battery car is great. You know, solves a lot of needs. If you have to drive long distances, then right now, at least in terms of state of the technology, you'd look more toward hydrogen. And that's why the automakers are trying to cover their bases, because they can't just sell 100-mile range cars. They have to have offerings to go further, and at the same time, they have to meet all these regulatory requirements for reducing greenhouse gases and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I don't know what the situation is in the UK, but over here, there's very emotional camps between the different technologies. There are the battery electric people who think hydrogen is awful because it's distracting from batteries, and there are the hydrogen people who think that the battery people are a little bit mad because they're so focused on the battery. So it's the emotion gets in the way of logic sometimes.
It does seem crazy to me. It's whatever's the best, you know, and safest. I know I was hear the argument reference hydrogen that, you know, it's extremely explosive kind of situation, you know, and that's why it might not get mass mainstream adoption. But like you said, on heavy vehicles, I've seen, especially around London, hydrogen fuel cell buses. Mm-hmm. And I actually read that some superstores are actually installing hydrogen kind of fuel cells and that kind of technology to power their shopping centres, kind of shops. Right. So I've been aware of it, and I'm quite impressed with it. I mean, my favourite car in times a hybrid is the BMW i3 range extender, because I think it's 550 miles. I don't know, but because you've got the little engine to back you up if
right, if you need it.
Yeah, exactly. And it just seems the best out there at the moment. I don't know whether you've seen any other really interesting cars on the radar, like Audi or Mercedes or any of the others that are bringing. Have you seen any other good stuff coming through?
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of it's quite expensive. Yeah. So I love the i3. I think BMW did a terrific job, I think, with the i3. As sexy as the i8 is, that's their super fast plug-in hybrid sports car, sleek, movie stars will be in it, all that kind of stuff. As sexy as that car is, I think the i3 is wonderful because they designed it specifically for its role as a city car. And they did so much in terms of using the carbon fiber reinforced plastic material, and they just did a fabulous job redesigning the vehicle and putting in the latest technologies that they could, state-of-the-art, current technologies. And it's great. It's selling quite well here. I think it's selling quite well in Europe as well. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the other interesting fact, I don't know if you know this, but the BMW factory in Germany that actually makes the i3 is totally off the grid. So it's powered by solar and wind. So it is a carbon neutral car in the full sense. It's not kind of, half-assing it, as it were.
Yeah, that's right. Moving the emissions someplace else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, which is great. So, what about Tesla? I know Tesla are doing lots of great innovative stuff. They still look very big to me, and I don't know whether they're actually that eco-friendly. I mean, I can imagine to make all that car, a lot of carbon's been made, and et cetera, et cetera. So what are your thoughts on Tesla?
It's an interesting question. I have unbounded admiration for Elon Musk as a marketer. And I think he's done an amazing job. It's a very difficult thing to start a new car company. So everything else aside, what he's done with Tesla is phenomenal. And it's a wonderful car. It's advanced in so many ways. And I'm going to hang on to that for a second and come back to it, because a lot of what they're doing with it is out of the bounds of sort of normal automotive industry practice and more in bounds with IT or internet software practice, which has good and bad aspects. But I'll come back to that.
Okay.
But the powertrain of the Tesla is interesting. I mean, Tesla made a decision, probably in part because they were a startup and didn't have much money, to go with the commercial 18650. They're called 18650 cells. They're like the little AA cells that you use in consumer. Yep. Right? So there's 7,000 or so in the powertrain. And much of their intellectual property has gone into how to package those, keep them cool, manage them, don't let them, have what the industry calls thermal events. What everybody else says is fires and explosions, right? So they did a fabulous job of that. Now, that being said, if you look at all the different powertrains that are out there, from the different battery electric powertrains that are out there, and Tesla has supplied powertrains to Toyota for the RAV4 EV and to Mercedes-Benz.
All right.
Right. If you look at their powertrains, they're not the most efficient. They're in fact they're among the least efficient of all the electrics. And I can make an argument looking at the Model S. Well, that's because it's a very fast, heavy, big car, but to get that range, they're carrying a lot of weight, so that's a decision. And as you pointed out, there are environmental costs associated with building lithium-ion batteries. And what the industry has basically done, because folks like Volkswagen and Renault and the other big OEMs that are trying to do battery electric cars have gone in and actually compared their comparable cars with a combustion engine and a battery platform. So Volkswagen's looked at the Golf. They have the e-Golf, and they've got the regular Golfs. And Renault's looked at a couple of its cars. And basically what they found is that the upfront greenhouse gas emission burden for building an electric vehicle is higher than building that of the gasoline vehicle. But over time, as you drive, if you plot a curve on that, then of course the zero tailpipe of the battery vehicle wins out. So long term, you're much better off from an emissions point of view with the battery electric vehicle than you are the gasoline vehicle. But in the short term, you're not. You've got that immediate carbon burden, and there's a lot that still has to be worked out in terms of manufacturing and process and so on and so forth. And then, of course, it depends on what your source of electricity is.
I'm just thinking out loud, Mike. Two questions really. One is, who has the most efficient electric hybrid / electric engine? And I'm guessing the technology is coming from the F1 because it's no money, no budget kind of with them. But I'm thinking Porsche, because I know Porsche are always very innovative. Do you know much about what they're doing with their
actually, it's the Volkswagen Group. So Porsche is part of Volkswagen, the big Volkswagen company. So I think, if I remember correctly, the Volkswagen E-Up, the little small city car, is the most efficient battery electric car. I might be wrong on that, but it's definitely one of the top most efficient in terms of how much electricity it consumes.
Really?
To propel, yeah. Volkswagen Group is doing very interesting things, and Essentially, particularly over here, they've sort of split it out. So the Volkswagen brand here is doing the battery electric, the e-Golf. The Audi brand here is going to do the plug-in hybrid. Right? And so if you look at Audi and you look at Porsche, they've got a lot of work on the plug-in hybrid side, where you combine the engine with the electric powertrain, right, with the big battery. And so and Porsche is doing incredibly well with their plug-in hybrids. It's like 10% of their sales, which I was astounded for that. But they're also quite, it's $100,000 car.
Oh, amazing car. Yeah.
I mean, so you're looking at. There's actually something I'd like to touch on at some point in our conversation, so I'll do it now, is that it's troubling to me that there's almost a bifurcation in the market. So there's the sales of the Teslas, which, again, that's an expensive car. If I have a look at the new Model S D model, the all-wheel drive model, the top end, that's $125,000. I look at the Porsches, I look at the high-end Audis that are going to come out. Very expensive cars. That is not going to move the needle, and they're going to do fabulously. They're going to sell a lot of them because people.
Are they doing this on purpose, though, Mike? If we look at a bigger picture here, I mean, we've got the oil companies who obviously are big players globally, and then we've got the car manufacturers who are big players globally, and obviously they've got say 20 different models of different cars. With combustion engines and think about manufacturing in terms of manufacturing those engines. Do you think maybe, I mean, I don't want to get too conspiracy on here, but do you think maybe that's why they're not jumping straight into the eco element right now compared to how they could do it if suddenly oil just disappeared or something?
Well, no, I'm not a I don't go for the conspiracy theories. It's economics. Yeah. So the reason the best, or most of the best, I think the e-Golf, there's some very good lower priced cars. Nissan Leaf's quite good. But it's because the people that will buy those have enough money to buy them. It's still quite expensive. Batteries are expensive. And there's a clear correlation between government subsidies and electric vehicle sales. Where you've got a lot of subsidies, you have a lot of sales, and where you don't, you don't. So if I'm an automaker, I have to figure out how I'm going to. If I'm an automaker, I know I have to make this transition to electric drive, whether it's powered by batteries or whether it's powered by hydrogen fuel cells or by something that emerges in 15 years. That's not a question. The question is how I'm able to do it economically, still sell cars right now, because I've got however hundreds of thousands of people to pay and supply chains to keep going, and still keep my development path for the future. So for an automaker, and again, Tesla's a great case in point. Startup car, great idea. Who are they going to sell to? Are they going to target the mass market mobile? No. They're going to sell a very expensive sports car, and then they move to a very expensive sedan.
Right.
It's straight accounting. It's where the money is. But in California, where I am, is actually trying to address that in a way, because we have robust subsidies that will help somebody that's trying to buy a Model S. We have the national subsidy, the federal subsidy. We have state subsidies, so you can actually get $10,000, $12,000 knocked off the price of your Tesla. And there are people in the California government that are saying, we should probably not be subsidizing purchases of $100,000 cars. We should be subsidizing purchases of lower-cost electric cars that go to people with less money. So it's an entire new area that's beginning to sort of bubble up in the policy area.
Yeah. I would like to thank our sponsor this week, which is ECOTIMES magazine. They cover everything green. Magazine is on the iPad and iPhone. They cover eco travel, amazing eco travel resorts, organic recipes, so amazing recipes to cook, eco gadgets, what's the latest gadgets in eco, amazing eco transport, so battery powered bikes, hybrid cars, battery powered cars, renewable energy, what's the latest in renewable energy, in terms of all the different innovative ways we can get energy. Eco how-to, so for example, how to build your own solar panel or own house or something along those lines. They cover eco architecture, so like eco building. They cover tiny houses, which are amazing small houses on wheels, which you should definitely check out if you haven't seen them. They cover all eco news, so what's been going on in the week, and organic food growing techniques. Anything green really, and it's a weekly magazine and it's on the iPad and iPhone or iTunes. So the link is below, so please enjoy. And now we get back to the show. Thank you very much. So, Mike, can you explain to us people that don't live in the US what has been going on with Tesla? Because I've seen a bit in the news, some counties have banned Tesla and all this kind of stuff. And I respect Elon Musk as a businessman very much so, but obviously we're not aware of what's been going on with Tesla or the bigger picture. So why are some counties banning Teslas?
Well, it's states, and the issue is the sales model. So the conventional sales model in the U.S. is we have our automakers, and they sell cars to their dealers, or affiliated dealers, but the dealers are the ones that have the distribution. Right. And there are federal antitrust issues laws in place in the U.S. that basically prohibit the big automakers from doing direct sales. And it's more complex than that, but that's essentially we have it set up so there's the automakers as one discrete entity, the dealers is another very powerful entity because they're local and they spend a lot of money with the local politicians, right? So the opposition has come from the local dealerships because Tesla's basically taking you could almost say, well, it's a direct sales model. They come in, they open up a
car shop.
A car shop. You can't really call it a dealership, but because that technically means something else. But that's where the conflict is. So there are some states that say that's preposterous. Of course, Tesla can come in. This is wonderful, and there are others that say no, we can't have it. We want a level playing field. So that's where a lot of the conflict comes in.
What's the general kind of countrywide feeling towards Tesla? Is it warm? Is it cold? Or is it it's just for rich people? I mean, what's the general consensus?
Well, certainly not cold. I think the general consensus would be it's a very sexy, desirable car. It's expensive, and people think Elon Musk is fantastic. It's interesting. I often think that the traditional car companies must weep whenever they look at their budgets because Tesla actually has a very small outbound marketing effort. They spend a lot of effort with their customers, and it's mainly viral. If Elon Musk sends out a tweet, there's this huge response, and all the publications pick up on it, and there's massive conversation, and so he and Tesla are constantly in the news, with zero budget. So
it's quite impressive. I didn't realize he was born in South Africa. Old Elon Musk.
He's a very impressive. Yes, he was born in South Africa. Did PayPal. That's where I think he made his.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he's the only one to start free companies worth over $1 billion.
Right.
Yeah. He's impressive from in any respect. So, hats off to a guy. What's going forward? What's kind of any new technology? I know they're bringing the whole kind of self-drive thing. Are Google going to bring their own cars out, or what about Apple?
That's a very interesting question. I just with Apple, in fact, had a conversation a couple days ago with some engineers at GM, and we were talking about that very thing. And my initial response going into that was, well, Apple's trying to provide software and so on and so forth, but I'm not sure whether or not they're actually looking at cars. And my engineer colleagues have lifted an eyebrow at me and said, well, in terms of hiring, they are certainly hiring people that would belie that. So the automotive industry, there are not that many engineers around, so automakers are very much in competition for talented engineers to do powertrain development and so on and so forth. And from what he said, Apple's actually competing for the types of engineers that he wants. So I'll say we'll see. They've got a huge amount of cash, and I don't know. Maybe
I think they just got the largest market cap of any company recently.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah, so I mean, they've got the distribution network, that's for sure. And I can imagine it'd be quite a slick design if they decided to get involved in the car manufacturing world.
Yeah, I have to. I'm an Apple fan, so I will definitely sign up for that.
Yeah, exactly. And there'd definitely be a model that's probably, they're very clever with their pricing, Apple, in terms of they always make it, expensive enough, but just enough to handle the pain to buy it.
Actually, I want to make one more comment. Is that the consultancy firm Strategy they've got the little ampersand sign. It used to be Booz & Company. They just released their Global 1000 Innovators Report. It's an annual look at who spends the most on R&D and who's the most innovative based on their metrics. So for the third year in a row, the Volkswagen Group is the top global R&D spender. They've been they've spent $13.5 billion this year, or are spending $13.5 billion on R&D worldwide. Samsung was second, then a couple more, like Intel, Microsoft. Toyota was the only other auto company in the top 10. It was down at number 7 this year, I think. However, on the innovation side, Apple's the number 1 innovative company, and Tesla's number 5. And Tesla's the only automotive company that made the top 10 on the innovation list with a very small spend. So it's that IT high-tech-like approach. I'd say high-tech because cars are so high-tech now. But it's the sort of like the internet IT approach that the Tesla team has built.
Isn't it?
Right. And that allows them to innovate extremely rapidly and gets in there. So that's quite exciting.
I think the key fundamentals is that he knows how to build a successful company, and he's bringing all the best lessons and talent together to put the best structure in place to move that company forward. Whereas people saying other companies have just been doing it for years like this, so this is how it's done. So. I can imagine though if some other startups chucked their hat in and made an affordable kind of battery powered or eco car that they could do extremely well, because really what other competition is there? I mean, what about 3D printing cars? 3D printed cars. I did see one already built 3D printed card.
Yeah, they did it at a conference. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I'm not sure how much it would cost actually right now, but eventually I think you can get there. And some of the things they're looking at right now are actually putting batteries in the body structure. It's called structural batteries. But doing a car is a very complex thing. It's not, and that's one of the problems traditional startups have had with it. It sounds easy to come up with a concept. It's very difficult to execute. And what Tesla's done, which I think is both a strength and a weakness, is it's merged the sort of the software model. So they do fairly constant software updates, and because it's all electric, you have a lot of control over your powertrain dynamics and the rest of it via software, as everybody's going there. So I think they're on release 6 now of the software updates for the Model S, and of course they went in, they did that after there were a couple of fires after crashes. They went in and modified the undercarriage a little bit with some additional safety features and so on and stuff like that. But that's very similar to, say, Apple comes out with iOS 8, and then oops, that didn't work too well, so we're going to do iOS 8.0.1. Oops, that didn't work. And you come up with it, and that's a fairly common model in the IT world, and that's that doesn't work all that well in the car world, because you have crashes. There are all these complexities, and that's my one lingering fear, or not fear, it's a concern about how they do it. It's almost, for me, it's almost a race of, will they bring the process and quality control up to speed fast enough, while still doing this update situation that they're doing without anything, calamitous happening. And of course, it hasn't, and they've got hundreds of millions of miles driven, and so on and so forth. So it's probably not an issue, but it is definitely a forcing approach for the auto industry.
So kind of to conclude and kind of wrap up here, Mike, what going forward 2015, I can imagine it's going to be an exciting year for the battery powered and hybrid cars. Right. Is there anything on your radar that you're really looking forward to seeing that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, you're going to see all the you're going to see a very large number, say in the 2015, 2016, going into 2017 timeframe, of plug-in vehicles coming out from the major automakers. Mercedes has said that. Volkswagen said that. They're just going to be quite aggressive. General Motors has a number of very interesting products coming out. The new Volt, Chevy Volt's the Ampera in Europe.
Yep.
They've completely rebuilt their drive unit for it.
Oh, I love that car.
I do too, and the new powertrain looks fabulous. So I haven't seen the new car yet, but I have seen the new powertrain. That was the GM conversation I was having.
Okay.
And they did an amazing job.
Do you know any possible dates that's going to come out?
They've just said it's going to go on sale the second half of 2015. So it's going to be the whole car is going to be unveiled in January.
Great.
At the Detroit Auto Show. Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to that one. And just there's many hybrids coming out. So at this point in the industry, it's all about reducing the cost, getting the weight down, trying to reduce fuel consumption in other ways by being smart about your materials and so on and so forth. So every car that comes out is going to be progressively better and better. And the software side of it's going to be more exciting too. So it's really fabulous, and to be in that industry as an engineer, I would imagine, incredibly satisfying right now because there's just so much to do.
I can't. For me, I do like my supercars as well, and the Porsche 918 Spider, which is a hybrid. Obviously, it's your first kind of supercar hybrid. Round. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the second kind of version of supercar hybrids and kind of the new technology, that they've kind of worked out kind of any kinks that were not working and stuff. So
that's a good point. And actually, so the Mercedes AMG High Performance Group in the UK just won the Dewar's Trophy yesterday. So for their Formula One power unit, the hybrid power unit.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me is that that's their second hybrid power unit, because for the prior versions of the cars before they changed the Formula One rules, they worked with the V8 and did a sort of a bolt-on energy recovery system. Well, for this one, for which they won the award, they generated like a 30% increase in efficiency from the prior unit. So it's just an amazing progression in a very short period of time to do that. And that type of stuff is definitely going to make it. The knowledge they get from doing that type of engineering, where it's about extracting maximum efficiency, not just pushing through enough fuel, that's going to hit the road cars that we see in a couple of years.
It's amazing, isn't it? I remember being at Goodwood, and it was the first supercar that was electric, and the power, it was wirelessly charging the car. It was like these mats underneath the car charging it. So, that kind of going into roadways possibly, or into your driveway.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
I think we've already got some commitments from OEMs to put that wireless charging capability. Okay. They're in there. So all you have to do is have the pad in your parking area, and you'd be good to go.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for coming on the show. And if anyone's very keen, obviously, in the kind of eco green cars, they can check out Mike's website, which is greencarcongress.com. And we look forward to having you back on the show, Mike.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I very much enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for enjoying our Eco Times Magazine podcast. We'd like to tell you all the platforms we're on. So we're on SoundCloud, we're on Stitcher, which is for Android. If you've got Android phone, you can download a Stitcher, which is a podcast app, and get the Eco Times podcast on there. We're on iTunes, so you can get it on your iPhone and iPad and all your Apple devices. And we're on TuneIn as well. And we're on YouTube. So please subscribe to whichever platform works best for you. And thank you very much for listening. We want to say a big thank you very much to Eco Times Magazine for sponsoring the podcast. They are a weekly magazine, cover everything green. So if you're interested in growing your own food, renewable energy, amazing eco resorts, eco gadgets, basically anything green, how to build your own home, tiny houses, eco transport, organic food, anything green really. Big thank you to them. And please check them out. The links be below, and it's on the Apple newsstand, so you'll be able to get it on your iPad and iPhone. Thank you and have a great day.